Why having too many interests means you don't need one career. You were never the problem. There's something the productivity gods don't want to admit. They built their entire empire on one assumption, that you should want one thing, one lane, one title, one trajectory, up and to the right, until you retire or collapse, whichever comes first. But you kept reading. You kept pivoting. You started the photography course and the finance book and the meditation practice and the screenplay simultaneously. And somewhere between chapter 3 of 3 different books, someone looked at you and said, "You lack focus. Pick a lane." Here's what they didn't know. The brain that can't stop learning isn't broken. Researchers studying what they call polymathic neural architecture found something that makes the productivity crowd deeply uncomfortable. The inability to specialize is, in some cases, a form of biological resistance to intellectual imprisonment. You didn't lack discipline. You lacked a cage that was big enough. If you've never felt understood by a job title, subscribe. This channel exists in that gap. Let's go somewhere colder. Let's go into the neuroscience. In the 1920s, psychologist Bluma Zygarnik noticed something strange. Waiters in a Vienna cafe could recall every detail of unpaid orders, but the moment a bill was settled, the memory evaporated. The mind clings to incompletion. It metabolizes unfinished things differently. This is the Zygarnik effect, and it is quietly running in the background of everything you've ever started and walked away from. Every abandoned course, every half-written idea, every interest you shelved because someone told you it wasn't a career, it's still open, still loading. Your prefrontal cortex hasn't closed the tab. It never does. The career-industrial complex solved this problem elegantly. Give people one track and the loops collapse. The mind quiets. The worker produces. The system feeds. But here's what no one says out loud. That quieting isn't peace. Neurologists call it parasympathetic overload from forced constraint, the cognitive equivalent of tightening a lid on a boiling pot and calling it calm. Your many interests aren't the anxiety. They're the pressure gauge. The lid is just on too tight. But what exactly is the anxiety? Is it the unfinished things, or the suspicion that finishing them would change nothing? Now, here's the part I wasn't planning to include. A 2022 study on multi-domain curiosity found something that completely reordered how I understood this topic. The subjects, all high-interest, multi-passionate people, weren't anxious from overwhelm. Their neural profiles showed something far stranger, anticipatory dissonance. They weren't overwhelmed by their interests. They were distressed by the gap between who they were becoming and the world that kept asking them to stop. The researchers called it neural intrusiveness, the sensation of a future self pushing backward through time, disrupting the present self's attempts to comply with expectations that were never built for them. You feel it as anxiety. Your body reads it as urgency. Career counselors label it as a problem to be fixed. None of them stop to ask, what if the premonition is accurate? What if your nervous system isn't malfunctioning? What if it's correctly predicting that the conventional path will not accommodate who you actually are, and it's been trying to warn you this entire time? Is the restlessness the disease, or is it the immune response? Drop a comment with the one interest you keep returning to. Don't explain it, just name it. Now, the loophole, and I need you to hold both sides of this at once. There is real peer-reviewed science behind what's called social taxation, the mental bandwidth consumed by managing multiple identities, multiple skill narratives, multiple versions of yourself depending on who's asking. The brain that must constantly explain itself across domains pays a measurable cognitive tax. Focus does help. Narrowing, temporarily, restores executive function. Silence is genuinely useful. So yes, there's an argument for choosing. Except, scholars studying what they call intellectual monoculture in long-term career research found something quietly devastating. Individuals who successfully eliminated their peripheral interests in service of focus showed a specific degradation, not in performance, but in something harder to measure, in coherence, in the felt sense of a continuous self that exists beyond output. They became very good at one thing, and they became slightly hollow. So here's where I leave you, and I do this on purpose. The answer is not the chaos of infinite pursuits, but it's not brutal elimination either. It lives somewhere in what theorists call the threshold space, the place between the door that's open and the one that hasn't been built yet. I can tell you the threshold exists. I cannot tell you where yours is. What do you lose when you choose, and what are you protecting by refusing to? I'm not going to give you a three-step framework. You've seen that video. It didn't land, because the problem was never strategic. It was ontological. The real question underneath all your pivots and parallel interests and unfinished drafts isn't what should I do with my life. It's something closer to who am I allowed to be, and who decided where that permission ends. The career was invented to make you legible to systems that were never built for complexity. It's a compression algorithm. It takes everything you are and flattens it into a title, a salary bracket, and a LinkedIn summary you rewrite every 18 months, hoping it will finally feel true. It never quite does. The fact that you're still searching, still watching, still reading things that don't fit any job description isn't failure. It's evidence of something the compression algorithm simply cannot contain. You are not someone who lacks direction. You are someone the existing directions weren't designed for. That is not a problem to be solved. It is a condition to be understood, slowly, without the pressure of a deadline someone else invented. Whether that condition has a name, a career, or a clear path forward remains, as far as I can tell, genuinely open. Which means you'll probably be back. Which means, in some sense, the gap is the point. If this felt like it hit a wall you can't see, comment "the wall" below. We'll be looking for those who understand the gap. Like if something here reframed a thought you couldn't articulate. Share it with someone who keeps changing their mind about who they want to be. And subscribe, not for answers, but for better questions.